Hey Manny, how's it going?
Hey, it's going well. Good to see you, Jeff.
So today I'm joined by Manny Bernabe. He's an AI evangelist and community marketer at Replit. He's a former data scientist for a unicorn startup and ran an AI agency, which I'm super curious about. And he's all about AI evangelism as well as content creation. And as a fellow content creator, I welcome you and share a lot of the pain that you've been through. So appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Jeff. I've been seeing your content on LinkedIn in particular. It's so good, dude. So it's really nice to be here.
So you have a very technical and quant background. Obviously you have like an engineering background, but where does that come from? Tell me a little bit about you and your story.
Yeah, so I started my career in finance, in particular investment management. And even managed to get my CFA, the Chartered Financial Analyst designation. And then I got recruited to help start up a data science team for an AI startup here in Chicago. So as soon as I got my CFA designation, like a month later, I was no longer using it because I was at this AI startup. Um, but yeah, then so technical in the part that like at that investment management shop, the way I differentiated myself is through being able to automate different reports. So I would ingratiate myself to some of the older investment professionals and I would say like, hey, like, that report that takes you 6 hours to do on a Friday, let me write a script that does that for you in 5 minutes. In exchange, you get to have coffee with me and you get to mentor me on the investment management space. And then I also started to learn to program, in particular in languages like R and Python. Just a lot of data analysis work in investment management, factor analysis, returns analysis. Investment management is just all numbers. It's a time series essentially, like returns by day, returns by week and month, stuff like that. And so that's where the technical background came into play. And then when I got recruited to join the AI startup, that just kind of 5x, right? Because now I'm around like real data scientists and like real engineers building all of that out.
That's super cool. So when I worked at Google, I was in FP&A as well, and a lot of the reporting wasn't through a UI. There's no easy download button. We had to go through BigQuery, build all the SQL scripts, and then export the data. And I ended up just building out like a Python script. Like I remember reading this book called Automate the Boring Stuff. And it was a Python book to teach you soup to nuts, like how to do web scraping, how to do a bunch of regex around like text, fuzzy matching, for loops, all the stuff that you do in coding. And then just getting you comfortable with all the different packages that are out there, like pandas, matplotlib for visualizations. And the cool thing is that you can crush what was previously like a 20-hour workload down into 3 to 4 hours. If it's a very rote, mechanical, regular type work, it's routine. That's automating the boring stuff. So yeah, very much think that's the place. So you're
100%. And two more things. One, it's more fun. Like when I would sit down and be like, oh, I've got to do this 3 hour tedious report, Friday or end of month. That's I would not look forward to. But if I like sat down and like automated it and coded it, I just much more exciting and much more interesting. And then two, you're building a skill that differentiates yourself and puts like helps you stand out. So for those two reasons, it was a no-brainer. I was like, okay, I got to learn coding, I guess. So let's learn R, then let's learn Python.
Yeah, like give you an example, a very simple thing in Salesforce, right? So like sales reps create an opportunity, they might jump around that first stage. They might start off in stage three, and then move to stage five, then backward to stage two, then move to close one. Very simple, right? But Salesforce has a field history table that tracks the stage changes. So you'll have an old value and a new value, but it doesn't have the record of when it was created, like what stage it was created in. So you have two different tables that you need to pull from, and you need to pull that data together, and you can time series it so you can check like the history and the movement of the opportunity, right? I had to create that in Python and weave a story together. And it's just because of the barriers that Salesforce presents with its technical architecture. But anyone who builds technically would know, okay, well, based on the data structure and how the data flows, I now can build this business logic on top of it that stitches it together and then tells a narrative beyond it. So I want to move away from Python. I think it's super interesting. I came across you because you hosted a session with AI for RevOps or vibe coding for RevOps. And I've dabbled in vibe coding, building really interesting side projects, science experiments. But for the audience who may not be familiar with vibe coding, what is vibe coding?
The way I would describe it is you're leveraging AI to help you build custom applications and workflows. So, for example, you can go into something like ChatGPT and Claude, and you can ask it to give you a Python script for what you were mentioning, this Salesforce automation thing, and it would give it to you, right? Well, but that's not necessarily helpful. It's not going to solve your problem. Why? Because you have to set up your development environment. You have to get Visual Basic. You have to download Python. You have to download all these packages. Then you have to get that code, got to put it in there. You have to try to run it. You have to debug it. Well, vibe coding or building with AI takes all that and just makes it super easier. So super easy. So my preferred tool of choice is Replit. I'll go on to Replit. It's cloud-based, and I'll work with the AI there, which is called Replit Agent, to build out all of the functionality that I need to get to the endpoint, which is that automation or an application or a workflow. And so in Replit Agent, it'll put together all the infrastructure. It'll set up all of the APIs. It'll set up all of the connections, and I don't have to do that. And so I would describe vibe coding as working with AI to get at very custom applications and workflows in a way that's just never been possible. And what comes to mind is what I've sort of been resonating with folks on that RevOps live stream that you mentioned is this idea that the line between technical and non-technical is going away. We all are product builders now. Let me give you an example. There was somebody that I spoke to, and they're on the product management side, and they were talking to a prospect, and the prospect wanted a change to the application. Now, a year ago, that PM would go and talk to the engineering team, go back and forth, and then loop in the prospect, and then finally get something that they want, and then try to ship the change. Well, now that PM just was working with the prospect, going back and forth on exactly what that prospect wanted, vibe coded the application and the feature, and then sent it over to the engineering team to build out. So that's a kind of an example of what I think vibe coding and building with AI is helping people do. And I think early on, I saw this more so with product managers. And my sense is because product managers are closest to the engineering side. And so like if you're a product manager and you've been used to doing all of these product requirement documents, prompting is actually pretty easy, right? Like I just need this, and then you build it. But then I started seeing it with designers. So like now take your design and go and vibe code the application. You don't have to wait for web developers. And now I've been seeing it with marketing and salespeople. There's a sales guy that I spoke to. He was on his way to a conference, and in the airport lounge, he vibe coded a custom game to have at the booth so that as people are walking through, they play it, they put in their information or whatever, and they have that as sort of a way to engage with folks at the conference. I built a demo. This is also like me being an agency owner and like being at some of these events. I built a demo for one of the live streams where I would, the idea is like, okay, like after a conference, you have a lot of fun, you talk to a lot of people, but then you have like 500 names that you have to go through. You have to research, you have to score. And if you're a RevOps person or a sales leader, you have to divvy up these leads. And so I vibe coded an application that would take all of those prospects, automatically find their LinkedIn, their company information, what type of funding their company has had, score them, route them to salespeople, and push everything to Salesforce automatically. So again, like I'm seeing like a lot of interest in particular for RevOps folks and salespeople around vibe coding.
That is interesting. Okay, so a couple of things there. You talked about attending a field event. You have a sales rep, sales reps, like just working with my marketing peers, right? You have a sales rep who comes to the conference. They want to claim every lead. That's not going to happen. So you might do a barter. You might say, in exchange for you attending the conference, you get to handpick two the very best leads for yourself, despite the rules of engagement. Or maybe we work something out with the rep who it's supposed to go to. Then you had a lead enrichment flow. In my mind, it's about sending the data into your CRM or going to an enrichment solution first, then writing back to the CRM, or it's in the CRM, then it calls the enrichment provider, then it scores and sends up all the lead assignment rules. That's like my traditional CRM engineering mind. So it's very cool that you can spin it up. So
And
I'm
what I ended up doing in this case is, my idea was like, you want to keep Salesforce clean. You don't want to build, I'm not sure if you want to let salespeople start vibe coding on your Salesforce instance. So you vibe code a separate application where you drop in leads, you do all the work, the enrichment, the scoring, the note taking, etc. And then when you're okay with the output, then you update Salesforce. So it's, your CRM stays, clean and stays updated. But then you, as a RevOps and salesperson, you get to develop all of these individual tools that makes your life so much easier.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, I used to use simple Salesforce as a Python package, and then you have to get through the authentication with the JWT token or whatever. But once you get through all the authentication pieces, then you can upsert the data inside of Salesforce, right? So you can work with the APIs to get in and out seamlessly, but you're creating a front end that is comfortable for the sales rep and even a field marketer. It breaks down the conversation of build versus buy, right? So like when I think of build versus buy, I immediately get to total cost of ownership and succession planning. Like how do we pass this on? I don't want to pass on a bunch of technical debt down the road. But the cool thing is you can rapidly prototype something very quickly. I'm curious, in that RevOps series, what other examples have you seen for builds?
Yeah, and it's a great point on, how vibe coding changes the build versus buy conversation. And the way that, the most immediate change that I'm seeing is that now it makes it worthwhile to tackle a lot of these long tail type of opportunities and use cases that A, would have not made sense for you to go out and have somebody custom build, or B, isn't big enough to have a SaaS option out there that you can even choose from. A good example is our friend Brandon Smith over at QuotaPath. He was on the stream, and he demoed a vibe coding tool that spun up custom demo data in HubSpot. And so his team has to go and they have to pitch different RevOps teams. And the best way to do that is to show them how the tool would work on the RevOps data. Well, most teams are not going to give you access to that right out of the gate. Next best thing you can say, like, okay, tell us about your overall business and what it looks like. Now let me spin up a custom fake or demo environment and show you what our product would do. And he demoed that product that had a lot of toggles, pretty clean, but like everything he would want to put in there, like from like the overall average deal size to how variable it was, different types of accounts. And then so he has that tool now. So when his sales team said like, hey, like Brandon, I have to do this custom demo for this prospect, like he could just like quickly like spin that up and boom, like here's your HubSpot environment, go and do your thing. I really like that example. There was a couple of guys from the Replit team, sales guys from the Replit team. One guy built a custom event lead enrichment tool separate to what I built. So like this is like a common pain point is like you have to enrich all these leads, and vibe coding is perfect for that. And a second guy built a custom AI training simulator. So he's like head of the sales development team, and so they have to like dial people, right? And so he built a custom application where it would help you practice that with AI. So you would dial in to this AI, and you would have, the goal would be for you to convince that AI to stay on the call with you and get a pitch, and it would score you in terms of, like how much you spoke versus the prospect, like whether or not you hit certain milestones. It was really, really cool. And he had just joined Replit. He was there 2 weeks, and this took him 2 hours to vibe code. And pretty much it was like, this prompt, do this, enter your API key, walk away, go grab lunch, come back, check it out. Yeah, it works, deploy. And then now you have this really cool demo.
That's crazy.
So it's awesome. And again, I think it's, I think it's still somewhat of a newer muscle, and I'm seeing it a lot with startups, lean operations, and smaller teams. But my sense is that the value you get from custom building your own applications, it's just like so big, and it's only a matter of time before this becomes the norm at many different companies. And in fact, I would go as far as saying that vibe coding is going to be the must-have tool to have. Maybe not in 2026, but I think in 2027, it's almost going to be a default kind of thing. You remember a time when like Excel was optional, right? Like you would put on your resume, like, I know Excel. Like now no one's doing that. Like it's expected that you know how to work with Excel and email and stuff like that. And I think that in the future, it's going to be expected that you can vibe code your own custom applications and workflows. It's that powerful.
That's crazy. So a couple of things. There's I think two common refrains for someone who, to get into vibe coding. One is if I build an app, how do I maintain it over time with changing requirements? So the scalability and the, keeping up with, the modern, keeping up with contemporary peers in your space. And then second would be the barrier to entry. So I'd like to explore each of those for those who are thinking about getting vibe coded. Like where do folks start? And then once you build an app, how do you make sure you maintain it and it's an app that can keep up?
Yeah, I would tell you that maintaining it is pretty straightforward, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. I would just say start building, and if an app is valuable enough, it's going to be pretty straightforward to maintain. I wouldn't worry about that at all. And then in terms of getting started, very straightforward. Again, Replit is my go-to vibe coding tool. I would go to Replit and just start a conversation with Agent in Replit. Think of Agent as the chat GPT within the Replit environment that is going to build everything from scratch, whether that is the file structure, the actual files, the code, the images, the APIs, the connectors, everything. Replit Agent is going to help you manage all of that. What you need to come to Replit Agent with is an idea and sort of a mode of operating where it's kind of like you're willing to direct the agent on the functional things that you care about and have a conversation with agent. So oftentimes I'll start off my conversation and say like the way that I built out a couple of these different use cases, they've all been through Replit Agent. So it'd be like exactly what you would be doing yourself, even if you're not a technical person. So it'd be like, hey, like Replit Agent, I want an event a post-event lead enrichment tool that will enrich the different prospects. Say that I have an email and a name and a company. I want you to build in a service that will go find the company information and the company website, also find their LinkedIn. I also want you to build in custom scoring so that it would evaluate based on certain criteria. And then I also want you to build out the ability to score the different leads and divvy them up across different salespeople. So that's kind of the approach that I take. It's functional. You as a RevOps and salesperson, you know functionally what you want, the inputs and the outputs, and you just have a conversation with Replit Agent in terms of those functional outputs that you care about. And then Replit will figure out all the technical backend. It will figure out what APIs to be using, what AI models to be using, if it needs to set up a database, if it needs to set up certain APIs. Replit Agent will figure all of that out. So in terms of getting started, I would say just go to Replit, go start having a conversation in Agent, and then just see where it takes you, and just kind of be open-minded to just kind of directing Agent in a particular way. One thing that I would mention, I think sometimes helpful to stagger the different features so that you're not, so that you can sort of get that first key feature done, and then you go into second features and third features. So, again, if I'm going back to the example that I mentioned, I don't think I put all of the features that I wanted right out of the gate. I started with the most important one. And then once Agent built that out, I then prompted for the next feature and then for the next feature. So I'll show you an example here. So yeah. So for example, here's one of my builds. This is a sales agent that lives in Slack. And so you can see the first thing that I wanted was, the ability for that sales agent to go and to ping my Salesforce for information. Then I wanted it to give me smart context on a particular inquiry about a salesperson. Then I wanted it to take action. So now I want you to update my Salesforce. And so I would, tackle the first big one and then go into the next big features after I've verified that the first one is working. But no, I think, once you get going, it's like ChatGPT, you're going to get addicted. You're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I think you just got to go and start and think about something that's tedious, that would be cool for you to have, something to build. And, I think it's almost an advantage to not have a technical background and to not know what was possible 3 months ago, because this example with the Replit sales guys building the AI simulator, if he had asked me beforehand, I would have said like, actually, that seems kind of technical. You probably don't want to start with that. But because he didn't know better, he was just like, oh, like this is what I want you to build. And Replit agent built it, which is like crazy. So I think it's almost an advantage that you don't have this baggage of knowing what was possible just 2 months ago because AI has advanced so much so fast, so quickly. So I said just go and get started, man.
I call that the curse of knowledge, right? Because you know exactly, or you have enough knowledge enough to feel like, oh wow, this is a bigger build, a bigger lift than I want to. And because of that, you feel anxiety and fear, like, okay, well, maybe I don't want to actually engage and jump into something that's going to take so long to build. So I think that's very interesting. Okay, so last question for you. For those who are, thinking about where vibe coding fits in the go-to-market picture, where should folks, what's one piece of advice that you'd share for them?
I would say that you need to add this as a skill set in the toolbox, either with someone in the group that is your vibe coding pro, or just general awareness across a couple of people or everybody in your organization. Brandon Smith says that like they have like a monthly AI session where they like just go deep on AI, and part of that is learning about vibe coding, learning about Replit. And so I think it's a skill that is has to be proliferated and has to be shared with folks and has to be built up across different teams. My sense is that you're going to have a vibe coder, like a go-to vibe coder in each one of your organizations, the sales team, but even like teams like HR, legal, like, and then there are going to be like a lot of people within those organizations that are going to be vibe coding. And so I would say like, spend some time getting your team up and running on this skill. It's maybe like it's probably going to be like a month before you see something that you think is valuable, but that's not a lot of time. Like in 1 month, you're going to have people, especially that are people that are high agency, have a lot of knowledge and expertise in their space, going to come up with some really cool custom applications and now workflows. I think a lot of workflows are going to be vibe coded for themselves, but also for the team. So Brandon built out a tool that his whole team is using. And then also, I'm not seeing this just yet, but I think it's only a matter of time before you're going to then monetize some of these applications and put them out there as an additional revenue stream. Like if you built it in-house, it's being helpful to you. Maybe that's something that you can turn on externally for other people as well. So my main advice for leaders is, help people get up to speed on building with AI, vibe coding, and it has to be across all of the different teams. Like move away from this idea of like technical versus non-technical. Again, that line is blurring away. Everybody's getting to build, especially with AI. So invest in that education and that empowerment.
Awesome. Now, Manny, where can folks go to learn more about you as well as Replit?
I am pretty active on LinkedIn, so find me on LinkedIn. Also, you can find me on X. And yeah, if you want to check out Replit, I'll give you an affiliate link, Jeff, where people can save $10 off of their first month of the core plan. But yeah, I highly encourage you checking out Replit. And if you have any questions, have any issues, definitely ping me on LinkedIn and on X.
Amazing. Manny, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show, Jeff.